What is going on, YouTube? It is Primitive here, and today I'm bringing you a little bit of an aggressive mirror match here. We're going to have two Armor Rush decks going against each other. This is one of the matches from the most recent locals here at Rocky Mountain Collectibles. Now, when I put this match on camera, I did think both these players were playing a little bit different of a deck, but instead we are going to get an Armor Rush mirror match. So this deck can get very aggressive, but it can also be very slow, as the Magnamons do kind of counteract each other to a degree in this matchup. But Hammer Spark out to the Davis Ken, and then responding with the Davis, putting the opponent at 1. They are going to go to 2 with the Davis Ken, but it doesn't really matter. Having the Davis out is going to be very nice. You don't want to be choked, and it gave you the opportunity to put your opponent at minimal memory. And now they're going to go into the Flame Digimon here. Going to be able to tap Davis Ken to unsuspend. Go with another Hammer Spark, so that way we can go up to 1 and play the Fire Rocket. Surviving the 2 checks there, we see another Fire Rocket in hand, so that can be used later. It looks like Magnamon and Fire Rocket in hand, so just going to pass turn there. It doesn't really matter. They're going to go to 3 anyway. So now going into the Ragemon, going to be able to trade in if you want. They will both Armor Purge, but you do get the Flame Digimon off the board, and you have the capability of being able to Hammer Spark and be able to go into something else. But they are just looking like they're going to go into the Ragemon for 2, put the opponent at 1. They are going to go to 2 with the Davis Ken, which does mean that they can go into their own armor, be able to swing over the opponent's Ragemon. But right now it's just kind of a little armor battle. They can also go ahead and swing with jamming here into security, and then be able to Digivolve into an armor on top, be able to use Davis Ken to unsuspend and then swing again. They do have the Ragemon here, so they're going to go ahead and Digivolve for that 2, unsuspend, and now it's more so, do you want to swing into security and get that last security check, or do you want to trade in? They are going to swing into the Vmon there. They are looking pretty healthy with their security count, so you don't have to be too worried about what your opponent's going to do, unless they really want to come out with, 2 or 3 Fire Rockets to just start to go super crazy. But as of right now, I think you're looking okay. You cleared all the security. You don't have a Digimon in raising, which is good for your opponent, but you really need to have something there to go for game. But here on the other end, I'm not really sure exactly what you do here. You have enough memory to where you could trade with the Flame Digimon, and then if you have Magna, you could go ahead and Digivolve on top of that to unsuspend and swing over the Vmon. But instead, they're going to go ahead and use the Kumamon, go with the hybrid, swing over the Vmon, leave no Digimon on the board. You still are weak to a hybrid, but if you can put your opponent at 1 memory, then you are going to be forcing them to have the Hammer Spark plus the hybrid there to go for game. But blue memory boost coming out, only 1 target there, I do believe, so going to have to take that. But multiple option cards going to the bottom, which is never good, because those cards are going to be very helpful, things like the Fire Rocket and the Plasma Shot. Looking at the other end, there is 3 Fire Rockets on the players on the left hand and a Magnamon. So not having the most amazing hand, very aggressive with those Fire Rockets, but not much you can do here. And if I do see that correctly, they did evolve Magnamon in drawing into another Magnamon, so the hand is still just Magnamon and 3 Fire Rockets. So you're going to have to just be able to go for game with this Magnamon here, but it's really going to come down to, does your opponent have the Magnamon to block yours when you go ahead and swing, and are they able to go for game right here? So we're going to see, they're going to go ahead and swing with the jamming Vmon, does hit another Davis Ken. If it goes back to the opponent's turn, it doesn't really matter. So they're just going to pop to go to 4 here. I imagine this is going to turn into some sort of Fire Rocket play. There's the Flame Digimon, and there's the Fire Rocket, so going to be able to swing 2 checks here. Still not in the best position to be able to go for game, especially with that Megadeth there. Going to be able to suspend the Kumamon and going to bounce the Flame Digimon back, so there's still 2 security checks on the board, and you got to be able to swing. So you probably wanted that Flame Digimon on the board, so that way you could be able to go for armor texture into something else, swing another 2 checks, and then be able to go in for the swing with the Kumamon there. But it did get suspended, and they are just going to scoop it up because they can't go for game there, and the opponent's just going to be able to promote that Magnamon and go for game. So starting off, going first, gonna have that Magnamon in raising, putting the opponent at 3, but Magnamon is just a very strong card. Being able to block all these swings coming in is very nice versus these aggressive decks. 2 Magnamons coming out as the only targets to search off this Vmon, so one's gonna have to go to the bottom. But now both players do have a protection plan here, but they actually are just gonna go aggressive. Don't care about having blocker, want to swing 2 checks with Fire Rocket into 2 jamming Vmons, so very safe there. You do leave your Magnamon suspended, which is kind of a problem because there's the Flame Digimon on the other end, so it could swing over it and have you Armor Purge, and then they can clear what's on the board right now. You could go for something like maybe an armor texture to be able to go into another Magna that's unsuspended to play around that, but we are just going to go with the Plasma Shot, get rid of the rookie that's on the board. I don't really think it's that big of a threat. I'm just assuming they probably don't have the best other plays. Plasma Shot just to get rid of a Vmon usually isn't the ideal Plasma Shot there, but is going to clear off the board there. Looking at the other end here, looks like there's a lot of option cards in this Armor Rush player's hand, so not the most form of aggression here. Looks like they might be thinking about playing their own Plasma Shot, which isn't going to delete the Magnamon, but it is going to weaken it enough to where they can go ahead and swing over it, and then when it goes down to the Vmon, it will retain that minus 4k DP and get deleted right there. So now the player on the left is quite commanding on the board right now, having really the only thing on the board. It isn't the most scary board state, but it is pretty much the only thing that's on the board, and your opponent's not going to be able to deal with it very well right here. Can't really use any form of option card because you don't have the armor out yet, but hard playing the Flame Dramon isn't the best response either. It did give the player on the right a decent amount of time to be able to develop some stuff there, be able to get the Flame Dramon and the blue memory boost out here, and then the Flame Dramon is out there without a source, so if it does get suspended, it could very easily be swung over. But we're just going to go with the Fire Rocket, getting 2 checks there, does survive, and then going to swing it with the other Flame Dramon here, does also survive, so that is nice. It is going to be stuck on the board. That's really annoying for the player on the right because they are going to want to clear this somehow, but you're going to have to commit to attack to it now because it did survive in the security, plus there's another Flame Dramon on there and the Vmon in the back, which can threaten. So going to go ahead and swing over the Flame Dramon with these sources. You are sitting at 8k, so going to very easily be able to swing over there. You do also have the EX1 Vmon underneath, so if you were to go for something like Armor Texture right here, as we see, that means you can go into something for 2 and be able to Digivolve for just 1, because you will unsuspend because of the Armor Texture, which is going to gain you the memory from the EX1 Vmon. So they would go to 1 on their opponent's side, but then gain that memory, go back to 0, and keep the turn, which means now that they can go ahead and swing over the other Flame Dramon. Now it's boosted up even more from the first Flame Dramon, plus this Flame Dramon effect, so very easily going to be able to get over. But now there still is an EX1 Vmon with an Upamon source that's still just hanging out there that they did leave on the board. They were able to get rid of the armors, but this Vmon might have been a little bit more of a target than the Flame Dramon with no sources was, just because this can turn into another armor while also just being something that can gain extra memory and draw cards here. We do have a Vmon on the board with no sources, so the Vmon can go ahead and swing and get the Upamon draw value if they choose. You are looking to potentially play into some pretty hard removal right here. There is the Plasma Shots and there's going to be the Mega Death, so you could get punished. Going to play a Hammer Spark and then swing, get the Upa draw, so that Hammer Spark is mostly probably just to play around hitting Hammer Spark in the opponent's end. I don't think it looks like they have any 2 to Digivolve armors. It looks like Mega Death, Davisken, and Magnamon, so you're probably just going to go for the Magnamon here, put your opponent at 1 and not really think about it too much. I don't think you have to go for anything too crazy with this hand. You can't activate the Mega Death right now unless you play the Davisken, so it's mostly, do you want to put your opponent at 2 and set up the Tamer, or do you want to put your opponent at 1 and set up the Magna to have a blocker, also have something that can potentially swing in next turn, get that last security check, and set up to try to get an ending here. You do need to slow your opponent down, so having the Magna is nice. They are going to have 2 swings. You can swing over really either of them because you are going to be buffed up to what is probably 13 or 15k DP till the end of your turn there. So counting out the option cards right there, looks like multiple Plasmas and multiple Hammer Sparks, so security's not as scary, but there is still Mega Death looming in there, and Mega Death is still a very scary card. Being able to suspend a Digimon and then bounce a suspended Digimon can really slow down your opponent's aggression here, but just going to go with the Ragemon to pass turn at 1. Don't want to give your opponent too much value. Putting them at 1 does make it so if that last check is something, like Hammer Spark, it would pass turn, but we're actually going to play another Hammer Spark, another Hammer Spark drawn for the player on the left, and so they are going to just play it out, still with the Davisken, the Mega Death, and then a Ragemon in hand, so the hand is not looking too good. I'm imagining it's either a Davisken here or a Ragemon. I think Davisken is a little bit safer, but Ragemon does give you a body on board to potentially swing in and have something stay, so they are going to go ahead and play it out, put the opponent to 3, but once they promote, they are going to go to 5 because that Davisken was just hit out of security. Here comes the Fire Rocket going for 1 check, and then, ooh, it's going to hit the Mega Death here, so Mega Death is going to be able to suspend something and bounce, so it looks like they want to return the Flamemon to hand, but what else are they going to suspend? I would imagine probably the Vmon. It does have the Upamon egg as well as it does have jamming, so you probably want that suspended first. Really thinking about this. Okay, so going to go with the Jamming Vmon. I think that's what makes the most sense. It is probably a little more valuable than the Ragemon. Going to go ahead and swing in right here. You are at 4 memory, so if you have Armor Texture, you can go ahead and just swing up and unsuspend, or you can just go into Flame Dramon, use Davisken to unsuspend, swing right there, and then go into the Chimera. They are going to be able to DNA Digivolve those 2 armors and just swing in with the Chimera and get that game right there. Alright, Mirror Match Game 3. Now, with these Armor Rush decks, they do tend to like to go first a lot, so we are going to see the player on the left choosing to go first. We see 2 Fire Rockets in their hands, so the player on the left loving to have Fire Rocket in their hand. Each game, they've had 2 to 3 in their hands pretty much at all times, so definitely going to be something that you can get a lot of aggression in going with early. Davis is a lot of memory to give your opponent at 4, so we're going to go ahead and play the Vmon Search top 4. Do put some good option cards at the bottom, but you do get to grab your Magnamon, which is nice. You'll be able to Digivolve that up later. We saw how powerful that card can be in the matchup, so going to go ahead and Spark up to 2 so that you can put a Ragermon in back, and then Magnamon on the board. So now you got 2 armors going. Next turn, you're going to be able to have a pretty good aggressive turn, plus you have this Magna to be able to kind of shut down this jamming Vmon, unless they were, of course, to have something like Ragermon to suspend you. So another BT8 Vmon coming out here, going to be able to either hit Magna or Flame Dramon. Looking at what you want to get as far as aggressive wise, looking at 2 Fire Rockets in hand, I think you would want Flame Dramon, being able to just go for big checks, but it looks like they're instead just deciding to go with the Magnamon. You can still get a very big Magnamon. The Flame Dramon being 8k can definitely be small compared to what Magnamon can get to, and you're also going to be able to give yourself a blocker. We are playing an aggressive mirror match here, so having those defensive tools in the Magna and the Chimera is going to be pretty important, but you are going to have to balance it out with these aggressive tools like the Fire Rocket to find a nice balance of where you're going to need to go aggressive and where you're going to need to go defensive. With Armor Rush, this is a deck where you really need to understand the goes of when do you need to go full speed and when do you need to kind of scale back and play a little bit of removal. I think with the player on the left, their hand, looking at it, they might want to just be going full aggro pretty much right away with all those Fire Rockets and just try to go for chip damage and go for game. But here comes another Vmon grabbing another Magna. Those Magnas are just going to keep coming out here. Going to be able to Digivolve on top of this Vmon and be able to unsuspend it. Gonna swing, does go down to the Chimera. They let it go through on the other end with the Magna, so is going to Armor Purge, but then you can just Digivolve up. Going to Digivolve on top of the Vmon that has the Upamon. It makes most sense. You might as well get your Inheritable out of it. If you're going to have a big Magnamon, you want to be able to kind of swing with it and be able to get those draws. It's better than having the one that doesn't have any Inheritables at all. But here on the other end, what are they going to want to do here? They can't swing with the jamming Vmon really, unless they just want to get the draw, because it will get blocked. They are going to go ahead and draw. Yep, and then that is the block there. I could imagine that's a pretty free block. It's much easier to block that than it is going to be to block the Magna, because then you're going to have to trade an Armor Purge, as to where with this you just get a free Digimon off the board. Here comes 2 Fire Rockets, so it is about that time. Gonna be able to swing in for 3 checks. Kuma, Flame, so 2 Flame Dramon, and the Kuma is not gonna be even close to being able to take this out here. So how are we gonna go ahead and end this turn? Gonna go ahead and just play a jamming Vmon, put the opponent at 2, say, hey, if you don't have a game this turn, then I'm gonna go in for big damage and potentially go in for game next turn. But with 3 swings on the board right now and the opponent's blocker suspended, the player on the right could very easily be able to go in for game, especially if a Fire Rocket comes out. I was gonna say Armor Texture or Fire Rocket could be pretty good. Gonna Armor Purge on the first one, but get the second check with the jamming and gonna be able to swing and swing, hit that Magna. Is a blocker, but not going to be able to help in security. So the player on the right is going to be able to take this Armor Rush mirror match. Now this matchup is obviously very close, as mirror matches usually should, but it's just very back and forth with the aggression and defensive. We saw lots of play between the Magna and the Fire Rockets. So with that being said, if you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe, because I'll be bringing you even more Digimon content, and I hope to see you next time. Peace out.